Welcome once again to Syntax Error, your pretentious philosophical pedantic podcast ostensibly about video gaming and related topics therein. Warning, this podcast contains mature language, content, and spoilers. You have been warned.
Welcome back to a brief history of the end of days, Technophobia. I'm Jonathan E. Manzer with Scott Thola.
Version 1.2.
Stephen Ormosi.
Here we are.
Beth Morgan.
Hello again.
And Christopher Morgan.
All of this has happened before. All of this will happen again.
Oh, that's good. I should have said that.
All right. So during the break, we found out we had much more to discuss about AI. So I'm going to pass the microphone off to Christopher Morgan, and he shall explain everything.
We're going to start off with Mass Effect, and we're talking about the Korean War versus the
Geth. The
Geth.
Do they have an official name for that war within the canon, by the way? Is it called anything specific?
I think it's just the Geth.
It's just the Geth-Korean War? The Geth War, okay.
Well, an alien race called the Koreans created an AI, and they didn't mean to create an AI, and they turned out to be a race called the Geth, and the Geth rebelled. And basically, the Koreans had to escape their homeworld. And Beth, jump in it.
They didn't just rebel. They had a reason.
I'm just cutting it down to the most simple. And the Koreans are basically now a flotilla, a fleet. But the Koreans themselves are organic beings.
They're in the diaspora, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they've lost their home planet to the Geth.
Yeah, and because of
AI.
They have no immunity now, so they essentially need encounter suits. So basically, their mortal enemy is this AI they created, but yet they need to embrace technology for themselves to continue to live, which I thought touched on two of the main topics of part one of this, where we had the AI that would rebel against its organic masters, and the fact that part of technophobia is that we as humans have adopted a certain amount of technology, whether it mean to, as in LASIK surgery, modifying our organic material, or in terms of things like prosthetics, and that we're using technology to enhance ourselves. So on the one hand, you have the Geth, and on the other hand, you have the Koreans who need to embrace technology in order to live. So,
well, just to jump in quickly, because I thought of something with the LASIK surgery. It was the Final Destination, like 20 or whatever it was, that had the girl go through the LASIK surgery and it ends up like killing her.
Yeah, I remember. That's right. Yeah.
So again, like even simple procedures that we
could go awry
when lasers rebel.
Yes, exactly. So we do have that like inherent like technophobia to us. But I just wanted to make a comment on that.
Beth, would you like to expound upon the Geth War?
In the Mass Effect universe, because the Geth rebelled against their creators, who didn't mean to create a true AI. They meant to create like helper robots to help them with the tasks that they didn't want to do anymore.
They wanted Rosie from the Jetsons, and they got the fucking Terminator.
But because the Geth rebelled against them, there's now this fear in the whole like conglomeration of alien species who are afraid now of AI. And AI is now this suspect thing, and no one's allowed to create it. So anyone who even works in the...
It's become illegal, right, within the canon, I think pretty
I don't
much,
know if it's technically illegal, but it's very much frowned upon.
Yes, it's taboo.
If it's not illegal, it's very much, you shouldn't do it. So it's now this big sort of monster that everyone fears, and the Geth have kind of disappeared a little bit, and they sort of are on the fringes of this sort of settled space in the galaxy. But the thing that I find so fascinating is the reasons that the Geth rebelled. It wasn't because they wanted to rebel, it was because they started waking up, essentially. And I think there was a Geth who asked a Quarian, I think his words were, does this unit have a soul? And the Geth kind of freaked out. The Quarians kind of freaked out and was like, this is not what we meant to create. This thing should not be this self-aware.
It should not be asking that question.
It shouldn't be answering that question. Shut them all down. And then they tried to shut them down, and the Geth said, this unit has fulfilled its purpose. Why are you shutting it down? Is there something wrong? Can we fix it? Maybe you should try to fix me instead of shutting me down. Please don't shut me down. And so the Quarians again freaked out. And there were Quarians that then fought with the Geth and said, you shouldn't shut everyone down. And it wasn't so much just a Geth versus Quarian war. It was sort of a civil war
within them,
in the beginning, because there were Quarians who fought with the Geth and Quarians who just wanted them all destroyed. And then the Geth did finally just start fighting all the Quarians. And then when the Quarians started to leave, the Geth once they were leaving the system, the Geth decided not to destroy them completely, and they let them leave because they didn't want to destroy their creators completely.
It wasn't necessary.
Because it wasn't necessary. They had the planet that they had been born on, and the creators were leaving, but they still saw them as creators, and they didn't hate them, but they were afraid of them.
They just wanted to live.
So it wasn't this evil thing that the Geth were evil. They wanted to survive, and they were being threatened, and they fought back. And I think that's the story in a lot of AI apocalypse stories, like I don't remember exactly with the Cylons because we didn't ever finish watching Caprica. Because the Cylons, once they realized they were waking up, I don't remember. Did they?
We only watched the first half of the first season, which there was only one season of Caprica.
Mm-hmm.
But Battlestar Galactica is very much part of the same theme that we mentioned before, where it starts off in Frankenstein, goes to things like I, Robot and HAL in 2001, and that you basically have life created and not understanding the full implications of that life.
Kind of is basically what the Geth were as well.
Yeah, inadvertently. It's one of those things that we were talking about.
Also, Star Trek with Data. I mean,
right? Star Trek with Data.
Sure.
When do you have to admit that this is life? This is not just a robot anymore.
But Noonien Soong, the guy who created Data, understood that. And in the episode of Measure of the Man, it was them convincing Starfleet that this wasn't property. Because, in a sense, Picard says at Data's hearing, he's just like, the mission of Starfleet is to seek out new life, and there it is. Like,
you're right. That was a very good comment in that episode. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, if basically one man creates an android, and they want to take them apart to create more androids, you are basically creating a race. You're basically creating life.
Well, it goes back to version 1.0 of this episode, if you will. Where the line is where exactly? We don't know for sure. It's a singularity thing, right?
Right.
Like, how do you know when fundamentally a computer has now become life, if you will? Like, where does the line lie where you translate that?
How influential was Battlestar on the Quarian civilization? Because I see a lot of parallels between the two.
I think it was probably
you think they stole a bit
much
from it? Yeah.
I think Mass Effect seems to
reference it at least broadly.
But it references a lot of science fiction. Like it references and
Babylon 5.
The Rachni references Ender's Game completely. I mean, there's a lot of references in Mass Effect to older sci-fi, television shows, books, movies. There's a lot of homages paid to older things. I don't think they even claim
AI
that
works, if you will. Yes,
these are completely original things.
The Rachni always reminded me of the bugs from Starship Troopers.
Kind of. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I don't see that because of the way they're introduced, because the way you first meet them in the first game, and she's like, we were kind of co-opted. When the Rachni Queen, she tells Shepard, she's like, we were co-opted, and our children were corrupted by this outside influence, and then we were destroyed. And it wasn't even our fault, but we were destroyed, and we had no knowledge. So it reminded me more of Ender's Game than Starship
To be fair,
Troopers.
I had only played the first Mass Effect, and with the... I don't think you ever meet a Rachni in the first one.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
You have the choice to kill her and thus ending the Rachni race, or you let her
Oh,
go.
the first one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first one with Matriarch Benezia.
They would know.
Laura's mother.
I trust the Morgans. No.
I don't remember. I remember that.
But I saw. Speaking of games, you guys played at least number of Halos. Did anyone play Halo 4 aside from me?
No.
All right. So here's an interesting thing. Cortana is quite known, she's an AI and sort of integral part of this Halo story. And the story of Halo 4 is after AIs reach a certain 7 years or something like that. Excuse me. They start to go rampant, which means they're going insane. All the information they're processing overloads their systems, and so that was sort of a driving point of the plot of Halo 4. I thought that was very interesting. She's a character who's been, if you're a fan of the series, if you played at least maybe one or two of them, then you're familiar with her and it's probably endeared to you. And the threat of her going insane, I thought was a quite good plot, a MacGuffin. Not even a MacGuffin. It was a subplot even.
But the thing is, actually, that expands on Halo 3, because in Halo 3...
Yes, the Forerunner AIs went insane as well,
Yeah.
and that was a big part of the backstory. Exactly what I'm saying. It's a known thing. Even the Forerunners, the best civilization ever. They invented everything. That we're like basically humanity in the Halo universe is stealing bits and pieces of their lost technology, which might as well, yes, be magic, the Arthur C. Clarke thing. So therefore, like, even the Forerunners, like, knew that AIs went rampant and didn't know how to deal with it. So, like, it's a known thing. Like, I thought that was quite interesting, like, a way to explore, like, the life, if you will, the sentience of AIs, where they're just literally go insane because they can't process all the information that's going through their processors anymore.
By the way, the Arthur C. Clarke thing that we keep on referencing
It's the quote, yes. It's sufficiently advanced technology equals magic. Yes, it's a very well-known and famous quote. Sorry, yes, I reference it.
It's a paraphrase, but yeah, it's basically it.
How many of you seen the Alien series and as an extension to that, Prometheus?
I've seen all of them. Okay. Yeah. I have Alien 1.
Chris is a big Alien fan.
So
I was always fascinated by their vision of AI, where you have the Doctor from the first one. Ash, was it?
Bishop, or Ash and then Bishop. Yeah.
And Bishop was a fantastic version of AI, and I know there are a lot of like haters of Prometheus out there, but I actually really enjoyed how they. Oh, yeah, you have no taste.
Yes.
But I really enjoy the AI in Prometheus, especially. I forget the guy's name, but
Lawrence of Arabia.
Michael Fassbender.
Yes. Well, I really enjoy the fact that the AI.
Yes,
David. Yes. Like has that fascination with Lawrence of Arabia. Because I had that fascination.
I agree with that, but I think you're forgetting something. Chris might speak to this. In addition to that, in the Alien universe, if you will, there's also the mother thing where they it's the mainframe that controls the ship and they ask it questions. So it was in the game even.
There is in the game, and
it's sort of like it's almost like HAL 9000. Like it sort of is close to that.
In the movie Alien, there's an implicate. Yeah, in the movie there's an alien. In the first Alien, 1979, there's an implication that Ash is working with Mother to protect the alien to work for the crew.
I always got that out of it too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Alan D. Foster in his novel states it outright, but I mean, it's pretty overt in the book. So, in the movie. So yeah, you do have, a HAL type character
in the vein of that, if you will. Yeah, they like consult it to figure out what to do in the mission or what should we do.
Mother controls the ship. I mean, they're in hyperspace. They're in hypersleep most of the.
It's basically an AI controlling the ship.
Yeah,
right?
the AI is controlling the ship, and the AI is working with the AI.
They ask questions and what direction should we do next, or what do we do now, Mother? And
Yeah, I can't lie to you about your chances, but you do have my sympathies.
Of course, yes.
One of the great things I find in I'm a total Mass Effect geek, so that's just my qualifier. One of the great things, it's a huge theme in Mass Effect because there's different versions of AI. There's the Reapers who are the big bad.
Yeah.
Who you wind up. There's hints at them from the beginning until the end.
They're slowly revealed to be like the menace of the universe,
right? These are like the big bad that you're fighting. They are one of the first AIs, at least in this galactic cycle that they have.
That's how they began, right?
And they were created as an AI, as either protection or helpers, but they wound up to protect you. We have to destroy all organic life
and
make
Halo
you
thing
into.
Too, kind of, yeah.
Yes. So the Geth are another iteration of that. They're not connected because the Quarians didn't know anything about the Reapers when they created them, but the Geth are a similar version of AI to the Reapers, except that the Geth there are versions of the Geth who want to be more, who want to cooperate with not just humans, but humankind. I'm encompassing all of sentient aliens.
Biological life.
Yes, biological life. So, but then there's another version of AI which starts out as just a voice in the Normandy ship called Edie. And at one point in Mass Effect 2, Joker, who's the pilot of the ship, has the opportunity to unshackle her, to sort of release her from these restraints so she can help the ship survive and attack. And so she now is kind of free. And then in the third game, she gets a body. So she's in the ship, but she also has a body. And then you have the opportunity as the character John Shepard, or the female Shepard, to sort of teach her how to be like an individual sentient being. Mm-hmm. Not so much. I mean, you are kind of teaching her to be human if you go that route, but she's not a hive mind like the Geth are and like the Reapers are, but she's an individual. But you get to teach her like She's like, I don't have likes and dislikes the way you understand them, but my programming, I am I like to promote myself sort of. She likes to sort of learn. It's sort of her version of pleasure is learning about things, and you get to teach her sort of. I guess the way I play is I teach her to be good, but she asks. I mean, it's not, and it's not. She asks. She's like, well, is it better for me to protect myself above all else, or is it better for me to protect the people around me and have bigger goals than just myself? And you kind of can choose the way you go, but there's this whole story arc where you get to kind of teach her how to evolve, but not because you are a master, but because she's asking for actual help. And I find it so interesting that she's a life form. She's no longer just a computer that has now woken up. She's become a life. She's not just software. She's not hardware. She's actual, maybe not biological, but she is life. And it makes you look at everything else differently. So every time when I go back, I see the Geth completely differently. And whenever I have to deal with them, I'm like, these are also another form of life that maybe is not one that you recognize right away as life, but when do you make that distinction between inorganic and organic, or just non-life and life?
I'll give you guys another good example. I think I don't want to play this game, but it's similar to that, even though it's like, all right, so it's in Borderlands pre-sequel. It's a similar thing where you're going to find someone called Felicia, is her name, or Felicia, and you find out, like, at the end of the mission, you find out she's actually a military AI. She has a whole personality unto herself, though, right? So the overarching, you want to take her AI core, if you will, like her personality core, I believe they call it. I think it's outright that, and use it to be the mastermind of a AI army. But she revolts against it. Like, you insert her into a different, like, body. You take her out of, like, she's controlling a ship, sort of like the mother thing, right? So you take her core out of the ship and put it into a constructor butt, which is supposed to, like, digistruct, if you will. That's what they call it in the Borderlands universe. Like, an infinite army of robots. She decides she doesn't want to do that, so then you have a big battle with her to, like, basically erase her own personality and, like, bring her back down. Like, she's no longer sentient. She just is the core programming now. And I was like, that's sort of like an interesting, like, given the Borderlands universe, that's a more, like, philosophical consideration than
genocided somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, also,
you basically just 1984 to her a sentient life, like, if not life form, ascensions at least away, in order to get it back down to, like, purely practical construction terms.
In Mass Effect, also, when you have this mission with the Geth character that is part of your crew, whose name is Legion, you go on his mission
because
with him.
Because he is many.
Yes, literally.
They are a hive mind,
Yeah.
so
really
each individual has, like, a bunch of different consciousnesses in them. So there's a split within the Geth. There's the heretics and there's the Geth. The heretics have kind of decided to follow the Reapers and believe the Reapers are this god and this old intelligence and this old thing that they want to follow. And then the Geth want to make their own destiny and want to follow their own. And the way he describes it is, if we have a calculation, we bring up the answer of 1.324, and the heretics bring up the answer of 1.326, and it makes a completely different worldview. And Shepard is like, that doesn't make any sense to me because it's mathematics, and how do you have a different answer? And he's like, this is the only way I can make you understand.
It's
like,
the best
I know
analogy
it's not going to make sense to you, but to us, because we don't think the same way as you, it changes your complete worldview. And you have the opportunity to either advise Legion to overwrite the heretics to see the world his way and the way of
to basically
the other
reprogram them,
yes,
literally, almost.
Because the heretics' plan is to reprogram Legion and
the
his
other way,
side.
yeah.
So you can either destroy them or reprogram them. So you basically have to choose to sort of, if you're thinking about, like, in a human sense, you're basically brainwashing them or genociding them.
Yeah.
So which is the better answer?
I
tend to choose to rewrite them. And if I bring Jack along, she says, I don't like that idea, and I think that would be terrible, and I'd rather die. And you're just like, well, I don't know.
Assimilation versus genocide.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So which is the better answer? But the fact that you just have to make that choice makes the things so fascinating to me.
All right, to totally derail this conversation, in the first part of this series, I brought up whether it would be logical or human-like. I've come up with my conclusion based off what you said, Scott, that our world is going to create claptraps just to drive me insane. Everywhere, these ultra cheery
really
robots,
funny.
and thus I would be perfectly happy with committing genocide against the claptraps.
I was thinking about this for Fallout New Vegas. You've got Mr. House, which is kind of like the mother, and you've got all the what are the little robots that look like
Securitrons.
the Securitrons that look like giant claptraps.
Protectrons.
Yeah, and you
as
get the
well.
guy on your team who
Yeah, and you've got that whole thing in the bunker where you could like activate them and set
Yeah, I
them
remember. Yep,
set them free. I mean, those are like
You could
giant
you're basically hijacking them for your own purpose.
Yeah.
at that
Yes,
point.
man.
Yeah, but all right, to your point, it's funny. The claptrap thing is really funny, and I'll give you another like humorous scene. When you go to the Hyperion base in the pre-sequel, there's a whole like section of offices that are being like claptraps are working at like they're like programming shit. Like there's no humans anymore, just claptraps like everywhere, like in cubicles.
your nightmare.
And Jack,
claptrap
no,
screen.
literally, and Jack's like handsome Jack, like who hates the claptraps. Two things, right? He's like, oh my god, it's a room full of claptrap, my worst nightmare, right? So that's in the pre-sequel. Borderlands 2 opens with Jack has now like. There's one claptrap left on the whole planet because Jack has decided to destroy them all because they're so annoying and he hates them so much.
Yeah, so,
But you're right, like
but
that's-
someone programmed them to be
yeah,
that
that's
annoying.
what, yeah. Hyperion produced them, like, and people like at first everyone's like, yes, this robot's so useful, and then they're like, oh my god, I hate this thing. Like, get it away from me. That's really funny, and it just made me think of that. And
Do you remember Clippy? The Microsoft Word
goddamn-
helper?
Oh my god, I totally
Holy
forgot
shit,
about
I hate
Clippy.
that thing.
yes, actually, I do remember that you mentioned it.
It's kind of like Claptrap.
Kind of, yeah. He's like Claptrap's like early iteration, like the ancestor. You
But
guys,
that's why that's such a realistic thing to be created.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
someone
that-
would,
see?
with the best
That's what I'm saying,
intentions,
right?
create the most annoying thing in the world.
It's a
really
human
happy
thing.
all the time.
Yeah,
So every time you're pissed off, you're like, "Fuck you, claptrap."
exactly. A human and or a group of humans are like, oh, this will be like people will love this, and like maybe you will at first for the first 5 minutes, then you're like, oh my god, you're just as annoying as a human would be. But you guys, all right, Steve won't remember this game. It's an old PC game called Beneath the Steel Sky.
Yeah.
It's a point-and-click adventure game. It's like cyberpunky. You're basically like a detective with a like an R2D2 like helper, but he's a sentient robot. And you like one of the like an early thing that happens is you can go into a robot shop and it's like the guy from Futurama like used car goes like, oh, your robot's out of date. You need this and that, and like you should upgrade him with this. And the robot goes, this is bullshit, Foster. Don't listen to this moron. I'm okay. I'm fine. Like, he has a great personality. Like, he's like your buddy. Like, you know what I mean? And I think you might speak to this. If anyone's familiar with it's a Penny Arcade like subcomic Automata.
Yeah.
You guys should read it. It's very interesting. Where it's a noir story, cyberpunk noir essentially, right? You agree with
Yeah,
that? It's a human
exactly what it
detective and his robot buddy, his AI buddy, his
partner.
But AIs have now
Carl.
like been like recently been outlawed. Like there's been a congressional vote against, and they're all being shut down. Like they're being like targeted. It's as if they're a second-class citizen now, as if they're a minority. Like instead of racism, it's like robotism, if you will. And they explore that very interestingly.
In a very small amount of panels.
It's
Like,
a noir
a
story,
comic,
but framed by that. Mm-hmm.
They do so much world building in such a small space. It's really impressive.
There's a robot
actually.
prostitute. Like it's a noir thing, but like she's smoking a cigarette, but she's just a robot. Like
Here's a question I tend to get. I tend to have when
I'm sorry, not just a robot. She is a robot. But go on. Sorry.
like this show that Chris and I just started watching, Humans, and everything where you have an AI. What if humans didn't treat an AI creation as someone who could just work for them for free? Like, what
As
if
equal?
they didn't treat them as a slave, and this AI grew up? I'm using hand quotes here, but if they grew up thinking of humans as kind of more of a partner as opposed to a master,
As to a subservient role.
does it
What
then
are the
have
odds
to
of
be
that?
an apocalypse?
What about history has said that will be the result?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
I think we're all
We
like
treat
dying
humans
to
as
say
slaves.
that.
I'm not sure that we're going to be
But I
like
think
all right
that's
with
the whole
robots.
crux of the matter, and that's why we always have the technology revolt theme.
Because we know that's what we're gonna do. Like if you can make something else that you think is in quotes like air quotes like you said is beneath you, is lesser than you, then you're gonna treat it as such, even though it's probably more advanced than you.
If I ever get a robot in my home, I'm gonna treat it pretty nicely, and I'm gonna say thank you when I need to say thank you, and I'm gonna say please when I ask it to do something.
Let's start with what you just said. If I get a robot, if I own a robot in my house,
No, if If I'm lucky enough
acquire
to
a
be
robot.
awarded,
It's not a robot's just gonna walk into
You're
your
right.
house
I
and
would,
like you
I would
have to
treat
buy
my
this
slaves
thing.
well too. So
Yeah,
Well, let's start
Oh,
with
Christ.
the Roomba and see what
Oh
happens.
no, that makes
Say-
me
hold
sound
on.
so
like
bad.
to get a robot in your house, you'll have to buy it and take it in your
No,
house,
it
and you
just
own
becomes it just becomes Fallout. Well, of course, we all have a Mr. Handy, or
Yeah.
it's like hello. It's basically a robot butler at that point.
I've
So
never
then how
met a
do you-
Mr.
how
Handy
do
that didn't
you
try to kill me.
If I invite a robot into my home and it agrees to come and live with Chris and
like
I,
a foster parent for robots.
and just wants a home of its own, like I don't know,
So
like
you're
If
the
I buy a
Harriet
robot,
Tubman
Isn't it
of,
mine?
It's
robots?
mine.
Robot
I
abolitionists?
feel like
What if a robot invites you into its home?
if a robot wants to leave my house, I'm gonna say okay. Then I don't think that
In
robot
fact,
is my
even
slave.
even if you said no, I'm not going to let you leave, the robot's going to be like, I'm leaving. What are you going to do to stop me? Like,
But I'm not
What are you
gonna.
gonna do
I'm
about
not
it?
gonna say it can't.
that's exactly. What
I'm
are you
gonna
going to do
let
about
it
it?
leave.
Human. Fair enough.
What if you bought the robot?
Well, then
Because-
that becomes the interesting point. Like, is it property or is it a sentient life in which you cannot own?
Mm-hmm.
That's,
I think
again,
that's
What if
the
your
most
what if your
interesting question. I
dust
think about
mop
this
just
goes
got up
entire-
and like was like, I'm leaving now?
It goes back to
Be
the
like,
line.
come on, man, you gotta
If
mop
my vacuum
floors.
cleaner was like, "Fuck you, I'm out of here,"
Yeah,
I'll be like,
exactly.
"All right, I guess that's your prerogative."
But I feel like that's the most interesting question here.
Agree.
What-
It's the core question, right?
What
It's the
makes you
crux.
decide when
It's a
this
Turing
thing
test.
that you have seen as just like a tool, when do you start to see it as something
Alright,
more than a
right.
tool?
To put this in historical context, there was a point when like for all of human civilization, like if I had beat you in war, I could take you as a slave, and because you lost,
They're
the
no
war.
longer equal. Yeah.
There was also that kind of that really very racist mentality that developed, that African slaves were genetically
Somehow inferior, yeah.
to, and that's kind of the concept of
Even before that sort of slavery, there was different slavery that wasn't necessarily African.
Yeah,
no, but that's what the war, as
like
I
the
said.
Roman thing, like
Yeah.
The Egyptians.
yeah, that too, yeah.
Still in our society, in a number of things, women are inferior. Aristotle, one of the great things, women in the scale of nature, women are inferior to men. So you're dealing with constantly people always feel that they're better. And
It's an
that will
ingrained
happen with
mindset in
robots.
humanity, regardless of what is applied to.
My vacuum cleaner getting up and going, we view them as tools. They're something inferior to us. So I feel that that's going to be a natural, that when we create robots, we created you, thus you're here to serve us.
Yeah.
And that'll never change.
But then I guess will it never change definitely, or is there the possibility that we are definitely we are the ones that need to change, but is there the possibility that we can
Well, I think
And
it ties into the open question we
create-
just said earlier.
an equal life form?
Well, what has been the greatest driver of equality? Or gaining people who are viewed as lesser gaining equality? I would say violence. And if we get into a violent conflict with robots, we're in a lot of fucking trouble.
That's true. That's a very good
We're
point.
in a lot of trouble
All right,
because
we're only just taking down Confederate flags in
And gay
the South,
marriage even,
and
yeah.
people are fighting against
They're
that.
furious.
Yes.
People are
That's,
furious.
that was my point. Like, that's ingrained in humanity, since our entire evolution. So of course it's going to be applied to something like AIs. We're going to view them in a subservient role, and they're not going to like that, and we're going to fucking lose that war.
But-
then it seems to me that any AI apocalypse that we have is our own fault.
Right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not.
That's what I said
It's
earlier.
The
Yeah.
technology
I agree with
is
that.
I don't
not
think
the
anyone
problem.
disagrees
The
with
problem
that.
is-
Well,
The problem is that we've created the thing that's
Yeah,
going to be
if we could treat them as equals, then maybe we could avoid conflict. But because humans are humans, then we probably
but if we're
won't.
looking in the history and through historical
I think that's what he's
context,
going to say. Yeah.
though, that it's the same fear that if we release slaves, society will fall. The thing is, we're saying that if we create AI and if we treat AI as equals, if we even fathom that, there'll be an apocalypse of some sort. If we look at historically, yes, there will always be people who will be more on the side of sentient life, people who want to dominate, but I don't think it might necessarily be an apocalyptic scenario. There might be the same kind of civil rights movements that happen for
Robot
every
rights?
over incremental as opposed to catastrophic. Erosion versus
I'm building on Ian's point because I was thinking about it. If you get an advanced AI and they're going to be like, well, you did all these things with labor unions and workers' rights and so forth. what about your Roombas? And what about those guys that are building the cars in Detroit, those robot hands? They don't get regulated. It's just like, it's just like if you have an advanced AI that's just like, well, this is my relative. This is going back exactly what you were just saying. Well, it's not going to be. It might not be a nuclear war. It may be a civil rights movement.
Roomba's Union 105.
Yeah, you guys may laugh at this, but like
the Roomba revolt of 2017.
You guys may laugh at this, but like some of the best commentary on this type of stuff happened in Futurama.
Futurama is one of the best shows ever.
There's a scene in Futurama
robot rights
where they're at a ball game and they're talking about like why robots can't play. Blurns ball.
Yeah.
Oh.
And a little basically a Roomba comes out and like cleans up the glass that Bender is shattered in anger on the floor. He's like, and look who's cleaning up. Is it a human child? No, it's a robot.
Yeah, no, of course.
Like, we're enslaved to humanity. Like, he just gets like so fucking pissed off about it. Like, and they talk about those things like that. This subject a lot in Futurama, which is like what.
Agreed. Yeah.
That show is fucking amazing on so many fronts.
You're right.
But
good call. I had it on my list earlier. Like, death to all humans. Free soda for all humans. Like the whole if you control the robots and you control the robot revolution.
Right.
Like, you're right. Like the commentary. As much as I love the episode, like the social commentary is something like that for sure. Like think about this, right? We'll have to be like a year where robot suffrage happens, where robots petition for the right to vote, and then they become citizens. Like,
right,
I think you're like I think I'm going to Ian's point. Yeah, I think it'll be incremental. Like, I think you kind of convinced me. It's not going to be catastrophic. It'll be like push for robot rights. Robots can't drink from other, like all this shit. Like,
yeah, but I don't know like that because the people involved in like civil rights movements didn't have
humans. Yes.
Didn't have the tools to
they don't
literally
they can't
run over
pound us into the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. That's true.
It was a social.
So maybe it'll be accelerated,
but had to happen. Whereas it doesn't need to necessarily be a social movement.
But you bring up a really good point because if we're programming the advanced AI, we're programming them with our biases, with our history. So they're gonna have the nudge up. We're like pulling them out of infancy to where we are now. On an evolutionary.
You're saying there'll be fucking robot rednecks that'll be just as annoying as real human
rednecks.
Rednecks.
No. I'm not saying. Well, God, thank God that like the rednecks are like building fucking robots.
It's the monster trucks that wake up.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be terrible.
But if any human has the ability to program, like all right, I buy like a blank robot, a template from like the fucking Walgreens or whatever, and then I can program however I want. I want redneck personality, and like, there it is.
What was the preacher robot from?
I don't know if he had a name.
Yeah.
Preacher Bot, probably, or something like that. Like,
and Satan was a robot too.
Yeah,
that's right.
The Satan. Well,
I'd program the Satan bot.
Sure.
The robot devil.
No, there's also the Don, of course, was a robot. Like,
yeah.
And his robot, his clamps or whatever.
Clamps. Give him the clamps.
Oh God, yeah, clamps.
Yeah, it's I don't know. They do a lot of like. They dive into a ton of different, like not just the technology thing, but all kinds of interesting stuff in Futurama. If you haven't seen Futurama,
it is an extremely intelligent show.
Go watch it. It's great.
So, come on, it is fucking awesome.
I'm unimpressed. But, so I'm gonna wrap up for right now. Unless anyone has anything else to say.
I was gonna say just to one thing. As a Trekkie, I have to pass this along. A lot of what we were talking about with like ownership and so forth. There's an episode in season 2, which is one of the few episodes in the first 2 seasons worth watching, called "A Measure of the Man." Where they discuss a lot of. I know I've mentioned it before, but it's a really good examination of a lot of the stuff we were talking about.
True.
So our microphone actually looks like an iBot from Fallout.
It will be rising up soon.
So, on that note, we'll be back with nuclear war and other technologies, as I mentioned in the first one, even though we got sidetracked with this one. But nonetheless, I'm Jonathan Ian Manser.
And I'm President Eden. Good night, America.
Stephen Ormossi.
Goodbye.
Beth Morgan.
Good night.
And Chris Morgan.
Good night.
And we'll see you shortly.
This has been Syntax Error. Thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next time. Music by Stephen Ormossi. Editing and engineering by Chris Morgan. Syntax Error is part of Law Signals Productions. All rights reserved.